how to properly purchase a used vehicle. So I wanted to make this video because I'm someone who I've never really been into cars. I don't know very much about cars, but a year and a half ago, I had to purchase a vehicle. And I didn't know very much, so I read a few books, I did a ton of research, and I really went out and executed properly on the purchase. And I bought this 2007 Honda Fit behind me with 116,000 miles, and I bought it for $4,000 cash. And I meet a lot of people, I have a lot of friends who they need to buy a car and they don't know. They're asking like, hey, should I buy a new car or a used car? If I buy a used car, should I buy it from a dealership or from an individual? What kind of car should I purchase, and how do I know that I'm not gonna buy a lemon or a bad car? And so I wanted to make this video to address all of those points in order from a strictly financial perspective. So I'm someone where, for me and for maybe a lot of you watching this video, a car is something that gets me from point A to point B. It's not something that I invest my self-worth into. And so this video is to teach you how to get as much car as possible for as little money as possible. So the first question is, should I be purchasing a new car or a used car? And from a financial perspective, the answer is extremely obvious. You should always buy a used vehicle, never, ever, ever buy a new vehicle. Even if you're someone like a real estate agent, or you're someone that has to put on an air of status, or that you have to have a fancy car, buy a 1-year-old car with a few thousand miles on it and you're gonna save thousands of dollars and it's gonna look like it's new. And the reason why it's a bad idea to buy a new vehicle is because cars are incredible depreciating assets. They are literally always going down in value from the moment you purchase it. It's always going down in value all the way down to the very end when it goes to zero. And the saying is true. When you purchase a car, the moment that you drive it off the lot, you literally lose thousands of dollars. And in 2018, this is crazy, the average price of a new vehicle is $36,000. Most people don't have $36,000, so what most people do is they take out an average car loan of $30,000 and they put $6,000 down. So that brings the actual cost of a new vehicle much higher because you're having to pay interest on the car. On top of that, when you purchase a car with a car loan from a bank, what's happening is the bank has to make sure that if you crash the car and you mess up and it's your fault, that they can get their money back for their loan. So what they do is they require you to get a certain level of insurance. So you have to have a certain level of collision insurance. So basically every single month you're paying so much more because you're insuring a $36,000 liability. Whereas the car behind me, like I said, it's $4,000. I have no collision insurance on it. So if I crash this car and it's my fault, I have $4,000 in the bank. I can buy another used $4,000 vehicle, but I'm not having to pay hundreds of dollars a month to have car insurance for a $36,000 car. Now, so right there we have the interest, also the insurance, and then a final reason is that new cars are so expensive to maintain and to have work done on them. Because the newer the vehicle, the more computer components that are in there, it's just so much harder to maintain it over time, and it's so much more expensive. I literally have friends where their keys cost $300, and when they lose their keys in the water, they have to pay $300 to get a new pair of keys. So now that we've determined, hey, okay, you should be buying a used vehicle instead of a new vehicle, should you be buying that used vehicle from a dealership or a car lot or from an individual? And again, the answer from a purely financial perspective is that you should always try to buy from an individual, and you should always try to pay in cash. Now, there's two reasons why people often buy from a dealership. The first one is that they don't have the money for the car outright and they need to get financing for the car. And the second reason is that they don't want to buy a lemon. They want to make sure they're getting a good car. Well, when we look at what a dealership's actually doing, they're basically flipping the car. So they've bought the car for a lower price and they're trying to sell it for a higher price to make a profit, which is exactly what they should be doing because they're running a business, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to understand that when you purchase a car from a used dealership, as the buyer, you're basically paying all of the overhead expenses of running that business. So you're paying the salesperson's commission, you're paying the wages of the people that are cleaning and working on the car, you're paying for the transaction costs, you're paying for the inventory or for the overhead of having the mortgage on the property or the renting of the property by having the car there. So you're paying all these overhead expenses. And when you look at what happens when you buy from an individual, basically someone's driving their car, they like it, one day they decide to sell it, and they want to sell it as fast as possible. They find a buyer and they sell the car. So there's no transaction costs. It's so much more efficient, and you're not paying anyone's fee or salary through that process. Now, like I said, the reason why people like to buy from dealerships first off is because they don't have the money for a used car to buy it outright. And so the answer to that is that if you're looking at a car that's $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 used, I would recommend, if you don't have the money for it, look at a car that's $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 used and try to pay for it in cash. If you don't have $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, I would recommend trying to borrow it from friends or family, or doing whatever you can to pay for it in cash, because again, when you take out a loan, you're paying interest on it, and then you're also paying higher insurance because you're going to be required by the bank to have collision insurance for your vehicle, whereas if you can pay for it in cash, you don't have to have collision insurance, because mathematically it really doesn't make sense to pay all this money if you have the money to replace the car. And the second reason why people like to buy from dealerships is because a lot of dealerships, they do safety inspections, they have all these point checks that they do on a used car, and if they're reputable enough, you can say, hey, I know I'm buying a good car because it's from CarMax or from this other dealership. And the answer to that is the study, the practice, and expertise of learning how to properly buy a used vehicle. So one of the books that I read was the Lemonade Used Car Guide. And I highly recommend this book. I'll link it below, but it's written by this gentleman who is like in his 60s or something. He's been riding on cars for like 40 years. He's an absolute expert in his field, and he's passionate about consumer advocacy. So he ranks hundreds of cars by make and model and lets you know how they do over time. Well, what's great about buying a used car over a new car is that I got this car when it was 10 years old. So I knew I had 10 years of data and reviews and statistics on the car. So I knew that the 2007 Honda Fit was the #1 ranked car by the Lemonade Car Guide for a small vehicle. And so you have that advantage when you're buying a new car or a used car, because you know how it performs. And what I didn't know before going into this process is that every single year, the quality of the car differs, even for the Honda Fit. So one year, like the 2008 may not be good, but the 2007 is perfectly good. So it's important to look at books like that to really understand what kind of car you're getting. And then secondly, you have to have the car looked at by a mechanic. So many people go and buy a car off Craigslist and they do not have the car looked at, and they end up buying a bad car. So the way that you fix this is when you decide that you're gonna get whatever car you're looking for, if you want a pickup truck or a minivan or whatever it is, you find the best models for that car. You go out and you find on Craigslist or some kind of search engine what part of town that vehicle is in. And then basically you go online and find mechanics in that area that have good reviews. You pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, I don't have much money, but I'm looking at a used vehicle. Do you guys do inspections, total point inspections for cars, for used cars? And they're gonna say, yes, we do. And it costs $60 to $100 depending on your area. And you just have to suck it up and pay that. So what I did was I looked at 3 cars. The first one I test drove and it was really bad. We were like, there's no way I'm getting this. So I didn't have it looked at. The second car was a Honda Fit, and I took it to a mechanic, had him looked at it, and they said, hey, this is a bad car. Absolutely do not buy this. And I think a lot of people, we may think that we know about cars, and you can test drive it, you can look under the hood, but it doesn't compare at all to putting it up on a jack and spending an hour going through the entire car doing a full inspection of it. And so with the third car that we looked at was this car, and we took it to a mechanic. They looked at the car and they said, hey, this car is in great shape. You should absolutely buy it. This is how much you should pay for it. Also, these are the issues that it has, and this is how much it would cost to fix all of these problems. So then I took this sheet of paper back to the individual and I said, hey, this is a good car, I want to buy this, but it has all these issues that are going to cost this much. Therefore, I should be paying this, not this. So with that, you're able to intellectually negotiate the price down, and that is how you properly purchase a used vehicle. So guys, the whole point of this video is that for most of you watching this, if you know, cars probably aren't your passion, but there's something else that is your passion in life. And I think that money is a finite resource that we have in our lives, and that we should be protective of it, and we should be smart about how we use our money so we can actually live the life that we want to live. And just like anything in life, like any skill, anything that you want to accomplish, there are experts that spend 40 years studying a subject, and then they sit down for 2 years with editors and different teams of people, and they write for 3 hours a day, and they go back and forth, and they try to take their best ideas they've ever had and put it into as digestible content as possible, and package it and sell it for $10 so that the average layman can pick up the book. They can know nothing about cars or how to dress well or how to get a perfect job or how to find a boyfriend or whatever it is, and they can pick up that book and you can learn the ideas of this expert. So I recommend that you guys check out that book. And guys, I hope you guys like this video. Please like, subscribe for sure if you want more videos like this, and comment what you thought about this, and I'll see you guys next week. Ciao.